This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Janet is away tonight. More than a dozen people have been arrested in connection with a wide-sweeping and ongoing organized crime investigation. It involves police services in 3 different provinces: Manitoba, Ontario, and BC. Now, while details still remain scarce, as the CBC's Rosanna Hempel reports, the investigation started right here in Winnipeg.
Police carried out a number of high-risk search warrants all over the city this morning in St. James and here in Sage Creek at this house on Ranville Road. One neighbor told us that they saw a number of unmarked police cars lining the street this morning, and just this afternoon we saw officers leave this house with boxes and a big bag of cash. Inspector Elton Hall with the Winnipeg Police Service says the searches are linked to organized crime.
It's going to involve drugs, guns, people, possibly human or sex trafficking.
Hall says Winnipeg Police is lead on the investigation, which began last spring. They've been working with police services in BC and Ontario, including in Hamilton, Toronto, and Vancouver. More than a dozen search warrants were executed across all 3 provinces Wednesday morning. It happened in 3 waves in Winnipeg, starting early in the morning. Neighbors told CBC News they saw police bang on this house on Sharp Street in St. James around 6 a.m. Officers also raided an apartment block in the neighborhood and another in the downtown area.
We had a lot of people in a community in Winnipeg calling and asking what was going on. There was a lot of people who were, we weren't quiet about it this morning, let's put it that way.
Police say more than a dozen people were arrested across the 3 provinces. No charges had been laid as of the morning. Hall says the investigation is ongoing and more information will be released at a later date. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, southern Manitoba is in for a snowy and windy night. Snowfall warnings are in place for the city of Winnipeg and much of southern Manitoba. Crews will start plowing main routes, sidewalks, and pathways tonight, and back lanes will happen tomorrow morning. CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk is on the roof tonight, tracking it all for us. And Riley, it is a slow go out there on the roads today. What's the latest we can see behind you, all those cars?
Yeah, a very slow go out here tonight, Brittany. Traffic is bumper to bumper through downtown Winnipeg, as it has been through much of the afternoon. Visibility out on highways significantly reduced. A number of highways in the Westman region have been closed already this evening, including the Trans-Canada in the Austin area into the Brandon region. So visibility definitely a concern. Looking at satellite radar, we have seen some heavier pockets of snow moving through the Red River Valley, through the Winnipeg region, which have really been driving some of these visibility concerns and not so great road conditions. I'll break this all down for you, Brittany, when I come back in a few minutes.
All right, thanks so much, Riley.
You're welcome.
An update now on that massive apartment fire on Toronto Street we showed you last night. It left dozens of people homeless and looking for a place to stay. The CBC's Alana Cole spoke with one resident who described what it was like getting out.
Fighting the flames from the outside, officials say it was too dangerous to stay inside. The city says the building is a total loss and everyone got out safely. Catherine Robichaud was at home when she heard an alarm, unlocked her door, and saw smoke. She says she grabbed her cats and got out.
It was scary because there was people outside in like shorts and tank tops and everything. They weren't prepared for anything like this. So I just had my sweater, like literally this sweater on, and I had a different outfit on and sandals. That's all I was wearing. And I had my 2 cats in my arms. And my friend Daryl came outside. He's like, what's happening? What's happening? And I was like, there's a fire. And he ran downstairs and he grabbed his baby and his girlfriend. That was my bathroom window.
Robichaud says she lost everything, but she's grateful she's okay and no one was hurt.
It's like my life is okay, but I lost my home.
People in a nearby building were also forced out as a precaution. A spokesperson for the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service says about 54 people have been displaced by yesterday's fire. and the city's emergency social services team worked to find accommodations for 20 people. Robichaud says she spent the night at her mom's, and Red Cross helped her find a hotel today. She hopes she can find a place to live quickly.
I am worried about that.
Robichaud says it will take time to get over what happened. In the meantime, the cause of the fire is under investigation. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Dozens of people are struggling tonight as the province's largest healthcare strike in more than a decade started at midnight. It's at a Winnipeg facility, which is home to people who live with physical disabilities. 160 healthcare support workers at 1010 Sinclair have walked off the job. The workers are mostly healthcare aides represented by CUPE Manitoba. Pickets went up outside the facility this morning. They say they haven't got a fair offer and are looking for wage increases. CUPE Manitoba President Gina McKay says wages have increased less than 2% over 8 years.
Healthcare support workers have been left behind. The previous government, there were so many cuts to services, community and health services, and now what we see is over 8 years these workers need to be brought up. So bargaining has, they've put everything into it yesterday until almost midnight and then went out on strike at 12:01 a.m.
Some residents joined the picket line in support of the workers. They say the help provided to them ensures a quality of life they otherwise wouldn't have. Cameron Cole stood from his wheelchair to offer his support and says he depends on these workers daily.
And let them know that they're important to us. The job that they do is special and it should be recognized, and they've earned an increase in their wages. Not deserve, they've earned it.
The Winnipeg Regional Health Authority says community leadership has been on site and will ensure there is the level of safe care needed for clients during this time. The Health Authority says it's also identifying staff at the health region who have the appropriate training to fill in where needed. As measles cases continue to pop up around the country, public health officials are urging people to find out if they have the vaccine. But as CBC's Josh Crabb reports, there's a push for Manitoba Public Health to go a step further.
Public health experts say a case of measles in Manitoba could be one flight away. Amanda Bokave runs a childcare center in Winnipeg's inner city where 90% of kids are vaccinated. She still worries about the virus spreading.
It definitely something to give you some pause because, at my age, it was never, you got your vaccination, you didn't think twice about it. And now there's, that's not the same case anymore, it seems like.
The virus spreads through close personal contact and can result in serious illness. So far, there are no confirmed cases in Manitoba, but the disease is in BC, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Quebec. Health officials want people to make sure they're vaccinated. Catherine Flynn worries some people might be left out.
We've got a lot of people who move, say, to more often than average. So they may lack continuity of care. They may not have a family doctor yet or have had trouble getting one.
Flynn is chair of the Point Douglas Residents Committee. She wrote Manitoba Public Health requesting mobile measles vaccine clinics, similar to those held during the COVID-19 pandemic.
And I think asking them, which is the official response, please go to your family doctor and check this out, that's not a reasonable response. And I think what we should be doing is getting some pop-up clinics in places like Barber House here, which has a daycare.
The province hasn't commented on the idea. A public health official previously told CBC vaccination rates for measles dropped in Manitoba after the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. 78% of 2-year-olds had the vaccine at the end of 2022, down from about 85% at the end of 2020. People born before 1970 are generally presumed to have acquired immunity due to exposure to measles because it was circulating widely at that time. But some people may still be susceptible, according to Manitoba Public Health guidance. If you were born in 1970 or later, you should check your immunization status and follow your healthcare provider's advice. Children can get the vaccine after they turn 1. You can check with a doctor, pharmacist, or public health office to find out if you're vaccinated. The shot is typically given at medical clinics. The province says the last confirmed case of measles in Manitoba was in 2019. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba's MLAs have returned to the House today. Question period is back, and with it comes new questions about the tragedy in Carman that left 5 people dead, regarding domestic violence and the role of Child and Family Services. For more, we're joined by the CBC's Ian Fraze, and Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine has asked for a review. Ian, what is she looking to find out?
Brittany, she wants to know about all of CFS's contact with one of the 5 people who died. 17-year-old Maya Grattan is believed to have been a ward of CFS. Her family says she was placed in the home of her cousin, Amanda Clearwater. It was Clearwater's common-law partner, Howard Manokisic, who's charged with first-degree murder in the deaths of 5 people, including his partner, as well as Grattan. During question period today, Fontaine says she's trying to get answers.
Immediately directed the department to work with the general authority to review all CFS contact leading up to the tragedy in Carman. I'm expecting or hoping to get that report by the end of April.
Grattan's mother says she warned CFS that her daughter wasn't safe living in the same home as Manokisic.
Ian, meanwhile, today the NDP introduced a new Labour-friendly law. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, that legislation would end the ban put in place by the former PC government around project labor agreements. Now, these agreements require non-unionized workers to pay dues and be governed by the same rules and benefits as their unionized counterparts. Premier Wab Kinew and Labor Minister Malaya Marcelino had construction workers in the backdrop for today's announcement. The politicians say these agreements will control costs and reduce the risk of major work stoppages.
Going to mean good paying jobs for Manitobans across the province. It's going to mean that we're going to be able to have these projects done, major projects done, on time and within budget.
The Tories have previously said these agreements discourage companies with non-unionized workers from even bidding on large construction projects. Current interim leader Wayne Owasco says today that more details are needed about what exactly the NDP is planning. Brittany.
All right, thanks so much. CBC's Ian Fraze live for us this evening. A Manitoba man has admitted to killing the mother of his child in a brutal attack at her home in 2022. Justin Alfred Robinson pleaded guilty this week to second-degree murder in the death of Tessa Perry. And a warning, some of these details are distressing. 31-year-old Perry was repeatedly hit, stabbed, and beaten with a table leg. Court heard this week that Robinson flew into a rage after Perry got home from grocery shopping one night. Perry was a mother of 4 children, 2 of whom saw her being attacked that night. Robinson pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in her death on Monday. He'll automatically get a life sentence, and a judge will decide later how long he'll have to wait before applying for parole. Indigenous communities could soon have better access to loans for small infrastructure projects. First Nations communities often struggle to finance smaller scale projects because they don't have the collateral big banks are looking for. So when it comes to getting funds for projects like water mains, sewers, or bringing high-speed internet to the community, they're stuck with high interest rates. The First Nations Bank of Canada is partnering with Canada Infrastructure Bank to make $100 million in loans available. The CEO of First Nations Bank of Canada, Bill Lomax, says this will help some of those small projects get off the ground.
Oftentimes they're too small to go to the Canada Infrastructure Bank to get the low-cost funding that they offer. And so what we're going to be doing is bringing that low-cost funding that they would offer, but on a smaller scale.
Ottawa says the First Nations Bank of Canada has specific expertise in evaluating projects. The $100 million that's available is just a fraction of the infrastructure needed in Indigenous communities. The Assembly of First Nations pegs the infrastructure deficit at $350 billion. Changes to Brandon's snow clearing bylaw are being put to the test this week. The city was hit by almost 30 centimeters of snow, and there's more on the way. Residents in the southwestern Manitoba city can now be fined up to $150 for failing to clear snow from any sidewalk adjacent to their property. The city says it won't be handing out fines for now because they're focused on educating residents first. CBC's Chelsea Kemp put together this story.
this stuff's blown in pretty good, so it's heavy enough. Yeah, it's heavy enough snow. It's not too much longer till spring, so we might get more though.
Something that's always been in place is that people are required when they own a home or they own a business to keep the snow clear in front of their house so that it's safe use for people that are going by. This is the first year it's been in a bylaw, so we're not rushing to get tickets. We want to educate people as to what their requirements are as business and homeowners. For this year, we're not issuing fines at all. In fact, we haven't issued any fines for this education year. What we try to do, or what Brandon Police Service does in using the bylaws, is to try to gain compliance. The last thing that they do is fines.
If everybody contributes, it would help, a little bit out, for everybody to shovel the sidewalk, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. In a way, it feels like passing the burden to the people, and not really getting the city to help a lot.
That's a good idea, actually. So, I mean, there'll be people that can't do it, physically can't do it, and for them, I feel badly.
It is not the intention of this bylaw to hurt somebody who's elderly or disabled. We want to work with those people and get them the help they need to get sidewalk cleared. As far as enforcement, really what we're trying to do is an able-bodied person that is not cleaning the sidewalk in front of their house, after repeated attempts of reminders of what their obligations are, they still don't clean that sidewalk, then that's when a fine, in the future could come into play. But really, it's trying to get compliance and get people to do the right thing.
CBC's Riley Lachuk is warm, he's dry, he's back in the studio
Almost
after
dry.
being...
My head's a bit wet still.
It's a little wet still after being up on that rooftop. Man, it sure looked windy out there and gusty, and you couldn't see a lot besides those lights behind you from all of those headlights in the cars.
We'll get to visibility in just a moment. I want to show you some video from today in Brandon, though. This is some that was shot through the afternoon today, and Brandon getting another round of snow like we are here in Winnipeg once again today, adding on to what has already fallen there. Visibility down to about 200 meters this afternoon. Winds gusting to almost 70 kilometers an hour. Right now, northeast winds at 37, gusting to 52. Visibility has improved to about 800 meters, but the Trans-Canada and several highways in and out of Brandon closed at this hour as we head into the evening because of those visibility concerns. Up to 1.2 kilometers at the airport. We did see that dropping in Winnipeg to about 600 meters earlier this afternoon at -3 right now. We still do have a snowfall warning in place. This does include the Brandon and Westman region, but areas like Melita down through Killarney have been dropped from that snowfall warning at this point, as we have seen the snow start to taper off through western Manitoba. So Brandon right on the edge of that snow tapering off. Back to the east here, we do have a lot of that snow still falling, and that will continue as we get through into the evening hours tonight. So here's the center of that low pressure system as it pushes its way toward the northeast. So by the time we get into the overnight period, we're largely out of the snow. Still a few lingering pockets of some light snow through eastern Manitoba and even back toward the Riding Mountain region. But really, once we get through the overnight period tonight, we're largely done with the snow. Starting your Thursday morning, windy once again, so travel through the overnight period into tomorrow morning is going to continue to be quite dicey with very low visibility at times, especially on open highways like the Trans-Canada or any of the highways heading north of the city of Winnipeg. As we head through Thursday, we do see a little bit of clearing, so by the time we get to the late afternoon, likely see a few sunny breaks ahead of a little more sunshine and calmer conditions as we head into the day on Friday. So looking at what's to come yet in terms of snowfall, another maybe couple of centimeters yet through the Westman region, 2 to 3 for the Winnipeg region, but the bulk of that snow making its way through the night tonight through the northern Interlake into eastern Manitoba, where we could see another 10 to 15 centimeters of snow as we head into the early part of tomorrow morning. The other factor, as I mentioned earlier, the winds, for sure, we're going to see winds continue to gust up to about 40 or 50 kilometers an hour as we head through the overnight period. Even some very gusty conditions, 20 gusting 40 along that Trans-Canada corridor first thing in the morning once again, before we start to see things starting to die off as we get into the afternoon tomorrow. So northeast winds gusting to 50 tonight in the Red River Valley, minus 12. Blowing snow through the night tonight into the early morning hours tomorrow. West winds gusting to 40 first thing in the morning. And then we start to see things dying off as we get into the afternoon. Sunny breaks even by the time we get to the afternoon, minus 7 in the afternoon tomorrow. So we're looking at a high of minus 5 for your Friday. Sunshine for the weekend, minus 3 for Saturday. Again, don't forget to put your clock forward Sunday morning, and a high of 2 degrees. And a sunny sky on Monday, Brittany.
All right, thanks so much, Riley.
You're welcome.
And of course, we will keep you updated on highway closures, school closures, and buses on our website and radio all evening and morning long. Well, the nominees for this year's Canadian Screen Awards have been released, and some of our own at CBC Manitoba are up for some awards. CBC Winnipeg News has been nominated for Best Local Newscast, along with 4 other newscasts from Vancouver and Toronto. Our own Bartley Kivas is in the running for Best Local Reporter, and our friends at CBC Indigenous, which is based right here in Winnipeg, have been nominated in the Best Lifestyle Program or Series for its food special called Time to Eat. The awards will be handed out at the end of May. Coming up, a Houthi missile attack on a Red Sea commercial ship has killed at least 2 sailors, and reports that U.S. and British airstrikes have targeted an airport in Yemen. We'll have more on the situation when we come back. There are reports that U.S. and British airstrikes have targeted an airport in Yemen. This happening after officials in both countries say a Houthi missile attack on a Red Sea commercial ship has killed 2 sailors. They were on board a Barbados-flagged ship, True Confidence. They're the first reports of fatalities since the Iran-backed rebel group began attacking ships. Rebecca Collard has the latest.
True Confidence al-Amerikiyya.
Yemen's Houthi rebels have taken responsibility for this attack on the True Confidence. They say they fired several missiles at the vessel after it did not respond to their calls over the radio. That lit the vessel on fire. Now, British and American officials have confirmed that at least 2 sailors were killed in that attack. It is not clear at the moment what the fate was for the other 20 or so crew members and security staff that were on the vessel, but we do understand that the vessel has been completely abandoned and is adrift. Now, Yemen's Houthi rebels have been carrying out attacks like this really since mid-November. They've carried out dozens of attacks against ships that they claim are either connected to Israel or its main backer, the U.S. They say they're doing it in solidarity with the Palestinians. Now, very often the shipping companies that own these vessels deny those connections. But despite the fact that they have carried out so many attacks, this is the first time that we've had reports of casualties, either deaths or severe injuries because of these attacks. Now, Yemen's Houthi rebels are allied with Iran. They do receive training and support from Tehran, but they are not a very well-armed militia. Yet they have found this leverage point over the international community by disrupting shipping in the Red Sea. And because of that, the U.S. and the U.K. have been carrying out this bombing campaign against Houthi rebels for more than a month now in Yemen, trying to degrade their capability, trying to stop them from carrying out attacks like that. But it's very clear by this attack against the True Confidence and also the attacks that we've seen over the last few days that they have not so far been successful in degrading the Houthis' capabilities. Now, a spokesperson for the Houthis said that they will continue these attacks as long as what he called the aggression and siege of Palestinians in Gaza continues. So we are very likely to see more attacks like this either in the coming days or the coming weeks. Rebecca Collard for CBC News, Berlin.
CBC News has learned the federal government is going to restore funding to the UN agency that provides aid to Palestinians living in Gaza. Several countries suspended funding to UNRWA following allegations some of its staff took part in the deadly Hamas attack on Israel in October. International Development Minister Ahmed Hussein, who was in the region last month, was scheduled to make the announcement today. That was put on hold and no new date has been announced. A senior government source tells CBC Canada's scheduled $25 million payment to UNRWA will be made in April, and the minister will be making a new funding announcement. Anyone in Canada hoping for interest rate relief is going to have to wait. As expected, the Bank of Canada has held its benchmark overnight rate at 5%. It's been there since last July, and it isn't likely to move for a few more months yet. CBC's Nisha Patel has the details.
So that's our new total installment.
2 years of high interest rates have hit the Dumichel family hard.
We completely used up all our savings. We joined the food bank. We took the girls, we had 2 out of anything extracurricular.
The mortgage payments on their dream home have nearly doubled. They lost steady work and could be forced to sell.
It's just a combination of hardships right now. You know, like we can probably last for about 3 more months like this.
Many Canadians like them are playing the waiting game, desperate for lower interest rates.
The higher rates have weighed on consumption and investment, and you have seen things slow down.
The job market is cooler too, and inflation has tumbled from its peak. But the Bank of Canada says it's still too soon for rate cuts.
The assessment of the Governing Council is that we need to give higher interest rates more time to do their work.
Overall inflation in Canada is at 2.9%, and some of the core measures the central bank watches are even higher. So interest rates will stay where they are until officials see more progress towards the 2% target. Even then, rate cuts could be slow.
I think it's very safe to say we're not going to be lowering rates at the pace we raised them.
But those high rates are squeezing borrowers. In the latest quarter, missed mortgage payments climbed 52% compared to a year ago. Anyone facing mortgage renewal this year will see their bills jump sharply.
We've been putting extra away specifically for that reason, to be prepared for rates of 6 or 7% even.
I'm obviously hoping rates will go down this year. It's hard to tell at this point.
I think if they were to start decreasing, it would help a lot of people.
The Bank of Canada gave few clues about when it could change policy, though many economists predict the first interest rate cut could come in June. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
People all over Canada are trying to cope with the soaring cost of housing. It's getting so expensive, it's threatening the very existence of some communities. That's led to a revival of a communal ownership scheme known as community land trusts. The idea sprang from the civil rights movement in the United States. There are now dozens of these land trusts in Canada. CBC's Shayna Luck has the story.
A few years ago, the community land trust concept was almost unknown in Atlantic Canada. But now, at least 4 groups in Nova Scotia have begun to organize trusts to push back against the housing crisis. These 4 groups are all based in historic Black communities. Many people in those communities are concerned that rising housing costs will force people to leave, scattering their close-knit connections. The trust model is meant to bring members together and create lasting connections to a place. The land is held forever for the benefit of the group. Organizers of the Weymouth Falls Community Land Trust believe if they can get a community land trust going, housing affordability and community connections will improve.
They're talking about the fact that they can't afford to retrofit their homes. They're talking about the fact that they're spending $2,000 on heating a month for their oil furnaces because their homes aren't properly insulated. They're talking about food security issues, transportation issues, all of these things that, without calling it a community land trust, that a community land trust can actually solve.
There are similar efforts going on elsewhere in the country. A community land trust is trying to offer affordable housing in Toronto's downtown Kensington Market neighborhood. Vancouver is also trying to use the idea to offer homes to families and seniors. The modern land trust concept was developed by a group of Black farmers in Georgia during the American Civil Rights Movement. That adds special meaning to the 4 Black communities here in Nova Scotia that are trying to use this model for housing, as they look to the past to help them secure their future. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
Farmers across much of the prairies have been dealing with severe drought for several years, forcing them to make some tough decisions. We'll have more on that story and what could be in store for Manitoba farmers after the break. Farmers across much of the prairies have been dealing with severe drought for several years, and that's forced them to make some really tough decisions. We'll have more on the situation on Manitoba coming up in a few minutes, but first, Julia Wong takes a look at the situation in Alberta.
Good girl, good girl.
Bart Guillon does not want to say goodbye to more of his beloved livestock.
It's okay, Bailey, it's okay.
But it's the new reality for the Central Alberta rancher because of the ongoing drought. The last couple years, Guillon has already sold off 50 cows, 30 bison, and 60 elk. With little moisture in the ground, feed has been hard to grow, and water sources are drying up.
My creek, which normally flows 6 feet wide all year, the last 2 years, it has dried right up in the springtime. I'm talking like dust.
And Guillon is not alone. This auctioneer says it's been a busy year and a half.
If they didn't get more grass or buy more land, everybody as a whole has pared back their herd for sure. A percentage, some have got right out of it.
Those here are watching the prices and watching the weather, like Shane Bucksaw, who's been farming for 40 years.
It's a tough game. You know, you have to be very optimistic and hope we do get the moisture and everything, and hopefully it helps us.
Despite what meets the eye, the prairies are in the grips of a multi-year drought. This scientist says the drought became really severe last year when warmer than normal temperatures melted snowpacks early and hot temperatures persisted through the summer. Even recent heavy snowfall may not be enough.
What did we get out of the latest storm?
So he's keeping a close eye on conditions.
Soils and reservoirs and groundwater are so dry in the mountains that we would need above normal snowpacks to break the drought.
So anything with color on them shows dry or wet conditions.
Droughts are becoming more common with the changing climate, says this specialist, and they build up over time.
I don't think we're going to recover this spring. What we can hope for this spring is that we start that recovery process. We start to see some moisture build up in their soils to allow crops to go in the ground.
Hadwin says farmers will have to adapt, whether it's by trapping snow or using different seed varieties that rely on less water.
This is one of the number of tanks that we've set up.
It's something Guillon is already doing. He's installed mitigation efforts to collect as much water as possible.
Most farmers are pretty resilient. They usually figure out a way to get over the hurdles and find a way to make it work.
Work that could use some help from Mother Nature. Julia Wong, CBC News, Brazeau County, Alberta.
Weather specialist Riley Laychuk is back, and we're going to be talking about the drought conditions here in just a few minutes. But first up, this storm. It was such a large system that we were seeing. Yeah. You were so busy today. I think I've said this every day this week, but you're the busiest man in the newsroom right now.
Busy day today and a busy week, but we'll put things into perspective a little bit. I want to show you a map here. This is from Manitoba Agriculture. It shows what we've seen in terms of normal precipitation or lack thereof across parts of southern Manitoba. So you see Winnipeg here, Brandon here. A little bit hard to read some of these names because the font is black on this map, but you can see that the Winnipeg region and into parts of the Interlake getting about that 90 to 100% of normal, but down into extreme southern Manitoba here, you can see we're in that below 50 range. So yeah, although we have seen some snow in the past week, it really hasn't done much. This map is current as of March the 3rd. I want to show you what it looks like right now. This is a few minutes ago on Highway 1 at the Oakville turnoff at Highway 13. Section of Highway 1 now closed from the city of Winnipeg to this intersection in the Oakville area. Yeah, lots of blowing snow and lots of visibility concerns across highways. So if you don't have to be out, probably a good night to stay in tonight for sure, even into the morning hours tomorrow. So we're seeing temperatures around the freezing mark across the capital region, -2 at the Forks right now, but some colder air back to the west. So we have Brandon at -10 right now, Melita at -12, and -11s and 12s up through the Roblin Swan River region as well. Into northern Manitoba, temperatures around -14, -16 through Gillam, -13 in the Island Lake region. So looking at how this kind of plays out through the night tonight, we see a rain-snow mix through Fort Frances, -8. Otherwise, 5 to 10 centimeters of snow coming through the Kenora and Red Lake area into our neck of the woods in southeastern Manitoba. 10 centimeters through the Gimli-Arborg region tonight, tapering off to about 5 to 10 through southern Manitoba, and tapering off even further across the Westman region. Another couple centimeters to come yet through the evening, ending through the overnight period tonight through the Westman region and into the northern part of Manitoba. The Pas-Océan -22 tonight, -26 in Thompson, getting up to -8 under a sunny sky tomorrow, -7 in both Flin Flon and Norway House. We'll start to see a little bit of clearing as we get through the day tomorrow, so a sunny -9 in Swan River as well as in the Brandon and Melita regions. Into the southeast will take a little bit to get to that clearing, but we will start to see some sunny breaks into the afternoon and cloudy and -7, Brittany, tomorrow in Kenora. Now, as I showed you, drought has gripped some parts of the prairies over the last few years, and parts of southern Manitoba have been no stranger to drought conditions in the last few years. I spoke with Manitoba Beef Producers President Matthew Atkinson earlier today. Matthew Atkinson, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
So first I'll ask, how are conditions so far this winter across southern Manitoba for producers like you?
Well, so far it had been a pretty dry winter, obviously a fairly warm winter. We didn't have a lot of snow until kind of this last week or so.
Okay. I mean, we aren't seeing the same sort of drought conditions here in Manitoba as points to the west are, but has this warm, dry winter so far, I guess, had an impact?
Yeah, I mean, it's been good for us in that we haven't had to feed as much in the warmer weather, which is good because we didn't have as wide a spread drought, but we certainly had some pockets in Manitoba that were very, very dry this last summer.
Okay. So with the warmer than usual temperatures, I guess, you talk about the drier than usual summer we had and the drier than normal winter that we are going through right now. Has that had an impact, I guess, on feed supply? I guess maybe the same impact as, say, like a cold winter?
Yeah, so in a cold winter, we obviously feed quite a lot more. And a winter like this, we can stretch our feed supplies a little bit more, which is good. I mean, we had some folks with a little excess in Manitoba and some folks a little short. So really a lot of that's kind of redistributed around the province and kind of filled a lot of those gaps there.
Okay. What do producers need, I guess, as we head into the spring months?
Yeah, it's a tough thing. Our groundwater is really quite low. And obviously, you know, the last few days worth of snow aside, we've been very dry this winter. And so we are kind of looking to have some weather events to replenish that groundwater supply so we get a good start on pasture and hay growth for the next year. But we're always cautious in what we ask for big snowfalls and rainfalls too.
Yeah, I mean, we aren't seeing the same sort of conditions that we have seen, say, in 2021, a couple years ago, where some parts of the province were extremely dry. Could we see, I guess, some of the excess feed that we have here potentially shipped west at some point?
Yeah, we have seen a little bit go out of Manitoba to the west. Not as much actually leaving the province, more just kind of moving around the province. And while we aren't maybe quite as dry as 2021, we are pretty well as dry in my area as we were at this point in 2021. So we're quite concerned what the year might have in store. And we still have a lot of producers that don't have their regular feed stores kind of replenished from that 2021 year yet.
Okay, so things have kind of dragged on, I guess, over the last couple of years. So I guess in the grand scheme of things, you guys are needing some precipitation, and maybe the snow that we've seen, probably a good thing for your neck of the woods, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. It's nice to see that snow cover. It's good for winter crops. It's good for our perennial crops, but it's definitely good for our grasses to get a start with some moisture in springtime for sure. And then some good spring rains to bring that on. We had a very dry fall where we didn't see rain events or snow events to really help us out much there.
Yeah, for sure. Matthew Atkinson with Manitoba Beef Producers, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
The heart of the city is beating with more life once again. Winnipeg's Downtown Biz says the core is slowly bouncing back from its pandemic struggles. Coming up, we'll hear more about a renewed optimism for our downtown and the work that still needs to be done. Downtown Biz says the core is coming back from the pandemic, but business still struggles. It's the latest from its Downtown Snapshot report released earlier today. It's all about better understanding the current economic landscape of the city's downtown. And while there's still work to be done, there is renewed optimism. Biz CEO Kate Fensky is a fierce proponent of the city's core and joins us now. Thanks for being here, Kate.
Thanks for having me, Brittany.
Well, Kate, we know the pandemic hit the city's downtown hard, offices moving to remote work, less people coming into the downtown, and it really hurt businesses' bottom line. So let's start with the vacancies. Are we seeing the return of workers, and is it close to being back to pre-pandemic levels?
We are seeing a return of workers, which is really great news. I mean, there's rush hour traffic right now happening, I think, every day, which we didn't see a couple of years ago. So we're seeing more foot traffic on the street as well, but there are still some challenges. We know a lot of employers have moved to a hybrid approach, and that impacts the bottom line for businesses and what they're facing. But we are seeing even this year, this month, more employees coming back downtown for the first time, some of them in almost 4 years. And I think when we look at office vacancy, while it has been climbing in Winnipeg, it still sits below the national average in Canada. And I think that's a good story. We were expecting some office vacancy with new space that was built and a little bit of the shuffle that's happening. But where we're more concerned right now is the ground floor vacancy. That has not started to shift. So we're still sitting at about 30% ground floor vacancy in our zone. And that's really those shops and restaurants. But that is really what we did see open in 2023 with 27 new businesses opening in our zone last year.
That's great news. And I was just going to say, a lot of those businesses had hard times keeping the lights on and the doors open. So as those office workers return, it means that customer base is back. So are we seeing an increase in new places coming into our downtown?
We are, I mentioned almost 30 new businesses set up in our zone in downtown last year, which is really exciting. So that number has continued to climb year over year. We're not in terms of what we were looking at, how it was feeling in the momentum necessarily back in 2019, but it is growing and we're starting to close the gap. We're always going to see some closures in downtowns. That's just sort of naturally what happens, even pre-pandemic. But our focus really is we want to see more businesses open than closing. And we're starting to close that gap. In Q4, actually, in 2023, it was the first time we hit net zero. And so in 2024, what we're focused on moving forward is continuing to support new businesses that want to set up downtown. And really, we're seeing the focus there around hospitality, restaurants, retail. Those are some of the new businesses that we have seen open their doors in 2023.
Kate, what about those big investments that are looking to breathe new life into those old buildings? I'm thinking of the former Bay Building, Portage Place. What does this signal to you?
It's really an exciting time. I think this all speaks to the transformation that we're seeing downtown. We really did rely on workers for so long, and we're seeing a shift now. And I think part of that that's really exciting is the economic and social reconciliation that's taking place in downtown Winnipeg. And that is something where I think there's so much opportunity. You mentioned the old Bay Building, which will now be called Waiwene Kinagon, a project of the Southern Chiefs Organization in partnership with True North Real Estate as well, that's redeveloping Portage Place. And then we have the Manitoba Métis Federation that's working on a few different properties, including one at Portage in Maine with the new Métis National Heritage Center, which is really exciting. But they've also purchased some other buildings that are key properties and bringing their employees back downtown and being part of this downtown community. So when we look at the investment, there's a lot happening, both from the private sector, Indigenous governments, community organizations, but as well all levels of government are really stepping up. And I think when we look at moving forward, there's a big opportunity to increase the residential population, hopefully with the Housing Accelerator Fund in the city earmarking more of that for downtown, because we know there's a big gap here.
All right, and like you just said, we need to get more people living downtown. So hopefully we'll see a big improvement in that over the next few months and years. Kate, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Still ahead, Riley Lachuk is back with your 7-day forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
have a look at radar right now once again, and you can see those that heavier band of snow that impacted Winnipeg starting to move north of the city, back to the west through the Westman region. We're starting to see some of the snow slowly tapering off, but the story of the evening, once the snow does taper off, will be the winds, of course, gusting up to 50 or even 60 in some of the open areas. Waking up to a cloudy -11 tomorrow as that snow tapers off. West winds gusting to 30 in the afternoon. High tomorrow, -7 degrees, looking at a -5 as we head into your Friday with some sunny breaks. And then we start to kind of swing upwards here, 1 degree. Don't forget to change your clock on Sunday, 2 degrees from Monday and up to 5 on Wednesday. Well, we have an update to a story that we brought you last week right here on CBC Winnipeg News.
CBC's Marjorie Dowhouse welcomed a baby boy over the weekend. That is tonight's Daily Lift. We'd like to officially introduce you to Lucas David Ricardo Dowhouse. He was born just after 10 p.m. on Saturday, weighing 6 pounds, 15 ounces. Marjorie tells us it was an incredibly quick labor and delivery, and the entire family is doing well. Marjorie says Lucas can't wait to come for a visit, and we can't wait either.
And we can't wait for a visit either.
Oh, we love baby snuggles. Look, he's already giving a reporter side eye there.
I love the saying on the onesie, "Look out, world."
Here he comes.
He's anything like his parents.
Congratulations. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Good night.
Be safe.